Welcome back to stage 6 of the 7 stages of alchemic transformation. We are getting to the good stuff. Now, last module was all about setting your intention. The intention, the vision, the goal, so to speak, of where you would like to grow into as a result of this transformation. So remember that we had this intention that creates tension from where you are to where you want to be. And that then creates a little bit of tension. And this is where most people will go to stress, to go to anxiety, because they have some discomfort in their life. So this is where stress and anxiety really culminates from. You have this area of your life that feels that you have some dis-ease in, that you have some challenges in, and you know what you want. Most people will say, God, I would love it to look like this. And if you don't, this is where creating that intention through the visioning process and then intentionally setting the intention then gets you to that point where you say, okay, I know where I want to go. And then the anxiety sets in because your mind now has, and your heart now has kind of honed in on what it would like to feel, what it would like to experience. You have that tension, and yet your mind is saying, I don't know how to get there. We've never done it like that before. We've never been there before. And all of the anxiety of how do I do it? How do I do it? How do I do it? How do I starts to create more and more stress. So in order for that not to happen, you have to come into this phase. This is the distillation phase. So in alchemy, if you have your worksheet in front of you, this is the part where you kind of write your notes down. The purpose of the distillation phase is to integrate the spiritual realizations that you've had. You start to integrate all of the breaking down that you've done in those first few stages. You start to integrate the visioning process of what you have to let go of and what you have to become, what you have to embrace about yourself, and also bringing in the intention and everything you want to create, and all of that starts to blend into new realizations, new understandings. The distillation phase is where the spark of divinity starts to purify those. Remember, distilled water is like pure water where you can put in, baby bottles and in your iron, so it doesn't like rot it and rust it and all the things. Distilled water is the more purified water. And therefore, in this area or this stage, we spark the divinity that purifies this area of your life. These new understandings, the growth starts to become really obvious. You start to connect the dots. You understand from all of the dissolution and the calcination and bringing it all into the awareness, all the ugly into the awareness. You understand how you got to where you got to. You understood how you created dis-ease in your life, how you created this need for transformation, whether you triggered it or whether it was triggered from the outside world. Altogether, though, you're realizing that you created it. And now there's a need for transformation, but now your heart is starting to align with that intention. And this then sparks divinity. It sparks the creative mind, the imagination, the higher self, the part of you that is in that 5D frequency. The soul frequency of you starts to come alive because it says, I know what we're doing here. I know how to get us there because we're already there. I'm here to lead you into that. Okay? This is where we become aware of the occurrences of our intuition, of our psychic abilities, which is really our intuition. This is where we start to trust in that part of us more and more. The divinity and the sacredness of us starts to become, and we become embodied by it. Because when we have been shown our truths, when we have been humbled by life, and we start to get to that point where, we get on our metaphoric knees and say, please, something else, I surrender. Something else, whether you believe in God or universe or spirit, source, Allah, whatever it is, nature. And you just pray to it and you say, can you please take the lead? I don't know what to do here. And you surrender. This is when the divinity starts to flow within you. This is a beautiful stage because this is a stage that most humans don't ever get to. They don't give themselves the opportunity to transform to the place where their soul frequency, their soul takes over, and the divinity within is what we are supposed to be led by. Because when we are led by the divinity within, it then comes down and fills our hearts because it's in and integrated in alignment with who we are, and we start to feel inspired, we start to feel love, we start to feel imagination pulse through us. And when we are in that kind of electromagnetic frequency, we then create it in our physical realm. That is how creation happens. That is how manifestation happens. When we operate from the divinity on down into the physical, that is our natural way. Stress and worry comes when we are trying to do it the opposite way, from the physical up into the spiritual. It doesn't work like that. So this is where the stage where you start to say, oh, I get it. I get it. Okay? This is when your unique passion comes to light. This is when your intention, the passion that you want to create in this area of your life, you start to get passionate about it. And you start to feel it in every cell of your body. And again, but your ego mind is still being trained. Your ego mind, your ego personality is still saying, okay, you want that? Let's figure out how to get it. I don't know how to get it. I'm gonna try really hard, and we've never been there before, and it's only operating off of what it has known, so it puts you in an anxiety mode. But when you start to become aware of anxiety and worry coming up because you don't know if you can create this intention, you don't know, you doubt maybe that you can, you're afraid to be disappointed, all of that stuff that you've identified in those first few stages is still present. And yet this is where you say, shh, sweet soul, we do this differently. This stage is all about building the confidence and the relationship with your intuition, with your soul, and understanding how you step into that being the operating system and allowing the ego mind to take a submissive role. This is where the training, this is where the balance comes, because in most cases, the ego personality has been in such a role, and the intuition and the soul self has been so quiet and so buried underneath all of this, that now this light starts to shine and this starts to come down, and you need an equal balance of both. The intellect and the emotional intellect still need to work hand in hand, but this is where the balance comes in. But it really takes kind of, manhandling, so to speak, this ego personality and allowing the quiet, the small voice of the soul. It doesn't scream, it doesn't overpower. It is just there saying, sweet soul, this is the direction. Sweet soul, this is the direction. And this thing is over here yelling, saying, this is how we do it. I can do it. I'll figure it out. I know how to figure it out. And this one's saying, that's not the direction. That is not the direction. So this is where you have to really tune in to this voice of the intuition. This is how you start to bring it into balance, and it becomes this beautiful co-creative relationship between your logic, your analytical side, your intellect, and the emotional intuitive side. Okay? This is where your soul takes the spotlight. That is what the distillation process is all about. And now we're going to get into the experiential part of this so that you can start to really tune into that soul frequency. You can start to practice using your intuition in very practical ways so that you can start to learn how it communicates, and then you can start to learn to balance it with the intellect. And we're going to talk about that in the experiential practice. So let's get to that. So let's get into intuition and really what that is so we can set the stage for how important this divine technology is. So I've written this out on your experiential worksheet because I wanted you to have these words in front of you as we went over it, because when you see it and you read along and you hear it, it then becomes embodied, and it also starts to awaken the confidence and the trust in this beautiful technology that is imbued and it is a part of who you are. It is your operating system, and yet we've become kind of corrupted in our collective programming of how we should be run, and that is by the intellect only. So what has been taken out, the mystery of who we are, has been taken out of our educational systems, our religious systems, of our collective systems in teaching us about this divine technology. So we have to kind of bring ourselves up to speed and update ourselves into this being an equal and opposite expression of our operating system with the intellect, okay? So we've been very imbalanced with how we have been taught to operate as a human in physical form. What has been taken out is that we are spiritual beings first, operating in physical form. So one, whole part of us has been ignored and denied. So we're going to bring that part of us back into your awareness. And on the last module, we're bringing this all together in a really powerful hypnomeditation that's going to activate this in you again. But first, let's give you some light, some knowledge about it, so you have that within your subconscious mind, so that when we activate it tomorrow, it already knows what we're talking about, okay? So every human being has an innate technology that is connected to the infinite realm of the creative mind. The creative mind is the creator, again, whatever you call it. Is it God, nature, spirit, source, great spirit, whatever you call it, there is a creative mind that has created universes, that has created every planet, every being. It created you. It created you in its own image and likeness, and brought you here in your own unique form so that you could be this human being that is of an evolutionary and in an evolutionary process to bring yourself up and into these higher states of being, and to continually transform into and find out who you are so you can transform into the true being that it has created you to be here in physical form. Okay. Unfortunately, for most human beings, this channel of communication, this technology provides a channel to information that is much more powerful and accurate than the human mind. And unfortunately, this channel is clogged up for most humans. It's clogged with too many thoughts from the human mind and with emotional sludge that builds up over time. Without constant use, the intuitive channel gets overtaken by all of the symptoms of overthinking and leaves just a pinprick of communication, which is why most people can't hear it, or if they do, they ignore it because they don't trust it. There's no trust left in it simply because they don't know it anymore. And all of that sludge that we were unpacking and taking and dissolving into in those first few stages is all of the sludge and the yuck that is creating this channel to be clogged up. So in the transformational stage, we are cleansing and clearing this sludge so that you can bring back up and cleanse and clear that channel of communication. By using the intuitive channel more and more, we clean and clear the channel, allowing it to become the vessel of universal information that is meant to be communicated to you. Keeping this channel clear is your daily purpose. This also keeps a wide flow of information and guidance flowing to you. So what that guidance does is it takes that tension that you have created by having this beautiful envisioned intention, and the guidance it gives you is only one step at a time. It's not going to give you the whole pathway to how to create the intention. It's going to give you one step at a time, but with each step it resolves the tension more and more, and it gets you closer and closer to the manifestation. When an intuitive idea pops up into your consciousness, you follow it. You keep in mind that the ideas that come to you may not make logical sense. They're probably not. Intuitive guidance doesn't always make logical sense. If you tend to be analytical and logic oriented, which most humans are, because that's how collectively we are conditioned, this will take some practice to start to then kind of go to the opposite end of the pendulum swing and tune into the intuitive ideas and act upon them when they don't make logical sense. Your logic will think it can figure out how to create your intentions, and it probably can. Many people can manifest things through sheer will alone, but it's not going to be the highest and most expressed version. It's not going to probably be the easiest way, and it will probably be the way that that makes logical sense, but again, is not the fully expressed version of it. And at this point, when you're in the transformational process, you want it to be fully expressed. You're going through all this work. You might as well make it as big and full and as expressive as it's meant to be. If you're going to do the work, then allow yourself to flow into it, not to force it and to, control it. Because when you control it, you're just, quite frankly, controlling it just messes up the whole flow and the process of it, and it makes it harder. It makes it harder on yourself. So if you ever have reached a goal and you're so exhausted at the end, it's because you've tried to control it too much rather than flow into it with the intuitive and intellectual balance of the two intelligences, which make whole intelligence. Okay? Your logic will think it can figure out your course of action. However, nothing knows the path of least resistance better than your intuition. Allow it to be your guide forward to resolve the tension of your intention step by step. So your experiential practice really is to start to reflect on ways that your intuition has shown up for you and how you have reacted or responded to it. So on your sheet, you might want to pause this after each question and allow yourself to sit with these questions and take them into the next 24 hours or the next week, however you're doing this workshop, and allow yourself to really tune into this part, okay? So do you tend to follow your own lead towards solutions or challenges or intentions, or do you often ask others for advice? So if you get an idea that you love and you say, oh, I would love to create that in my life, what do you tend to do? Do you sit with it? Do you ask your intuition? Or do you go and to a family member or a friend and say, hey, I want to go do this. How do you think I should do it? If you're on that side of it, it's then putting the steps, putting the perspective outside of you to pull you into your intuition. And I will remind you, we've already talked about some of the influences that friends and family have. If they don't have strong or high enough beliefs in you or even in themselves, they will not be able to give you the perspective of intuitively getting to the end result for you. Also, when you start to change and transform and you bring your ideas of what you'd like to create to some people, that intention could become threatening to someone else who is unwilling to change. And they might want you to stay exactly as you are. And this is all unconscious, but they might want to, they're afraid of you changing, because then it takes you further away, because your resonance, your frequency starts to rise. And when you change and transform, you learn new things, you get higher perspectives, you move in a different direction. And when they're down here, they might say, ooh, I feel so distant from you, but I'm not willing to change. So if you're asking them for advice on something that's going to grow and expand your perspective, unconsciously, they may sabotage it for you simply by just saying something like, no one else in our family has ever done anything like that. Why are you even thinking about that? You're setting yourself up for disappointment. And then your own mind, who has been in that subconscious programming with that friend or family, says, yeah, what are you thinking? Let's just stay the same. We're not going to go do that. We've never done that before. And relying on that same intellect to try to get you somewhere is gonna lead to the same thing. It's going to lead to self-sabotage in most cases. This is why you have to pay attention to what you have always done in the past and do something completely different, completely in the opposite direction of how you've done it before. So if you tend to ask others for advice, sit with this now and say, okay, I'm going to do this myself. There is nothing for you to figure out, sweet soul. There is nothing for you to figure out. This is all about you being intuitively pulled into the intention by listening to that small sound voice. And I will tell you, she takes you in such small, manageable, and bite-sized steps that it feels safe and easy. So when you sit and you say, okay, what's the first step of my process? And you get something real easy that comes and you think, okay. And your intellect says, all right, that makes sense. Now you're balanced, right? Now you're balanced. We're going to come back to that. The next question is, if you go to someone for advice, who is that person? And do they normally lead you in the right direction? Think about all the times you've gone to this person and asked them for advice. Have they gotten you there? Have you achieved all of the goals that you have wanted? Have you achieved all of the intentions that you wanted with this person's help? If so, then yes, it might be that person that has that perspective that you can trust and rely on and share this intention. Remember, we talked about that in the last module. Be careful who you share this with. The other thing is, if you are asking someone how to achieve an intention you have they have never done it, chances are they're going to lead you astray. It's that whole adage of you share your intentions with someone who has done it or something similar, so that they have the same perspectives, they have higher perspectives and can help you. If they have never changed or never achieved anything close to what you're doing, sweet soul, this might not be the person that you trust in this manner. This might be someone that you have to question whether or not they are actually serving you to be in your life. Again, this process is not always easy. It's quite humbling. And building trust in this process means that you have to build trust in yourself to sometimes let go of those who help in the sabotage of you staying the same. Staying the same will never ever help you or serve you in increasing your life and expanding your life. Okay? Number 3 is list 3 times you didn't listen to your intuition and you wish you had. The whole hindsight thing, when you look back on something, you're like, man, I knew that was the wrong decision, or I knew that was the right decision. I knew that person was, odd. I knew there was something up with that person. I knew I had those red flags, but I ignored it. Think of 3 times in your life. That probably isn't too hard to do if you really sit with it and say, when in my life have I not listened to my gut, not listened to my intuition, and it didn't work in my favor. Okay? So this is again bringing the awareness to, what if you had trusted those little gut instincts? Where would you be? How would you be? What would your perspective be? This isn't to beat yourself up. It's just to put you back in that moment when you understood how you were being communicated with your intuition. Now, list 3 times you knew something about someone or something, but you just didn't know how. Go back to those moments where maybe you didn't listen. You're like, I don't know how I knew that person wasn't very trustworthy, but I had no intellectual evidence, therefore I couldn't say no, or I could, that's when we demand an intellectual reason or evidence for this intuitive feeling. That's not always going to be the case. We have to be able to trust fully the intuition, so that when we do get the feeling of, this is a hard no, this step or this person is a hard no or a hard yes in our life, even though there's nothing intellectually to give proof of it, you have to trust it. You don't have to, but you will learn to trust it over time, because you don't always need to have an intellectual reason. And even if someone says, well, why? It's okay to say, I don't have to give you a why, because I know. How do you know? Because I know, You don't have to explain yourself. When my kids were little, I had taught them, wherever we are, if there is ever a person or you feel uncomfortable and you just say, Mama, I don't feel comfortable in here, I won't have to ask you why. We just say, okay. I taught my kids from an early age to trust themselves. If something doesn't feel right, you don't have to explain yourself. You just get out. And as teenagers, I'm hoping that this is part of who they are now. So if something doesn't feel right, they don't have to look for logical answers all the time. They trust their intuition to say, this isn't right. This isn't a resonant vibration. This isn't a resonant frequency. Let's exit this situation. That is what we have to learn to understand, is that we don't always have to give explanations for our choices if they are right, the correct and highest best good for ourselves. As long as they don't hurt other people and we have our own interests in mind, because that's all we have power over, really, and we trust the intuition, the evidence doesn't have to be there. So trust it. So this is how you start to gain trust in this communication between yourself and your intuition, which is all one. Once you fully integrate your entire being, your spiritual, emotional, and physical being into one complete and whole entity, into one complete multidimensional being, this becomes just second nature. It's not your intuition is separate from your physical. It just is who you are. So how you can start to understand and build trust in your intuition is to first sit quietly and ask yourself a true statement. So asking yourself something like, my name is, and state your name. Then sit quietly and feel where the answer comes from. Feel into how the answer comes. Do you hear it? Do you see it? Some people will see a flash of a yes, that's true. Some will just feel it. Some will hear it, kind of not like audibly hear it, but hear it from within. So how do you know that the statement is true? Do you feel it in your body somewhere, in your gut? Do you feel it in your heart? Wherever it lands for you is true for you. It's going to be different and unique for every single person. So there is no wrong or right right answer to this. It's just what is unique to you. And then you repeat that a couple times. Say a couple different true statements so that you can get a pattern. You can start to get observations of evidence of where your intuition shows up for you, when it answers you, when it speaks to you. Then do the same thing, but say it with a false statement. How does a no show up for you? How does a false answer show up for you? So again, do you feel it in the same way, but does it feel a little bit differently? Does it show up differently? So really practice this. This is an easy practice. You can even pick something up and just say, is this rubber band red? And feel into where that answer comes from. This can be kind of a fun process when you just sit with it and allow it. It becomes kind of addictive because all of a sudden you'll just be asking all kinds of true, false questions throughout your day just to, if you're out and about and you're kind of in the busyness, do this same practice. So again, you are getting used to getting information, whether you're sitting quietly on your own or whether you're in a crowd. And again, this is how you'll start to build that relationship up with your intuition, so you know how it speaks with you and how you are going to communicate with it in all scenarios of your life. This is such a beautiful practice, and it becomes a sacred one, because once you start to get used to it and you get this relationship going and you really start to trust it, it literally becomes like this being that's with you. And it's you, it's your higher self, it's a higher part of you, it's the sacred part of you. And then your heart will start to grow and expand, because you have this guidance, you have this friend that's with you at all times. You don't have to go outside of yourself to ask somebody and feel connected with someone over an idea or an intention that you have. You have this being within you that is there at any moment when you ask it for a conversation. It's such a beautiful, beautiful relationship to build. So how do you take this into your everyday life? Again, just as I said, doing this all throughout the day, asking these true false questions. And then what happens is you take your intention that you've had, that you wrote out, and you then, you have your intention, so you got some tension. And once you get used to and you start to build that relationship of trusting how the answers come, then you sit and you read your intention aloud. Hear yourself say it. Feel yourself in it. Really get connected with the intention. Build the tension of, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I want to experience in my life. This is exactly how I want to transform this area of my life and step into this. And then you simply ask your soul, what is my next step in the highest and good of this intention? And you listen. And whatever comes, it will start to resolve the tension, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to say, I can do that. And then your intellectual mind will be like, okay, we can do that. Now you're in balance and you take that step and this tension resolves and your heart expands because you're one step closer. Then it gets easier and you say, okay, what's the next step in alignment with my intention, in the highest and best good of my intention? You sit quietly and you get the answer. And your intellect says, okay, we can do that. And you go do that. And it gets easier and easier, and the tension resolves and the tension resolves until eventually you step right into that intention and it manifests. How long that takes, there's no answer to it. It depends on what your intention is, and it depends on the speed in which you take action. Inspired action is the action that is given to you intuitively. Some of the steps you might say, oh, that one's a hard one. You might start to intuitively feel that maybe someone in your life is sabotaging your ability to create this transformation. And it means that you have to have a conversation, or you have to maybe remove that person from your life. So that might take a little bit longer. That might take some time. So you will not get any other steps in the process until this one is taken care of. So if you sit behind it out of fear for a while, that's going to extend the amount of time. But if it's an intuitive yes, and your intellectual mind says, you know what, I can see how that can be. We've got to take care of this relationship first before they keep sabotaging this dream or this goal. Or, oh yes, this job is standing in the way of a more expressive outcome, and you get in this intention, you intuitively and intellectually get balanced on the idea that I have to quit this job, but you don't know what comes after that. That holds people up a lot, because they want evidence as to why. They want evidence as to what comes next. But you intuitively, you will not get the next step until you take the step. And then the clarity and the vision come on the next step on the other side of it. So this is a practice in faith. This is a practice in surrendering over to your sacred self that knows exactly how to lead you into that next phase. Your sacred self is in the lead. It's such a beautiful, trusting relationship to have. And yet, if you've had relationships in the past with beings outside of you that have have taken away your trust or have disrespected you, it's going to be hard sometimes to rebuild that trust within you. And yet, this sacred relationship of your intuition and your higher self is the one, sweet soul, that you can wholeheartedly trust. It's not going to guide you to something that is going to destroy you. It's only going to lead you to something better, but you might have to dismantle a job or a relationship as part of that process. But it's not to sabotage you, it's to make it easier for you. So taking these steps is essential. So however long you sit behind a step in fear or in anxiety or in worry is up to you. But if you know this process of transformation, you know that taking away all that brings you fear and anxiety and breaking it down and getting under the roots of it, like we've already done, you just go back to that process on this one step and say, what's really underneath here? What is the root of this fear that is stopping me? What is the root of this anxiety? And then you take care of that, and you take care of the guidance that you're getting, and then you move into a more expansive space because you go to the next step and you resolve even more tension. This is a beautiful process. Spend time on this stage, because once you build faith in this stage, and once you build faith in your relationship with your intuition, sweet soul, every single thing that you want and desire in your life for the highest and best good of you and all involved can't not happen. It has to happen, because it is it's a remembrance of a part of you that is coming online, that is coming back into your awareness. And when it comes into your awareness, you've already been there, you've already created it, you know how to do it. You, meaning your big you, your intuition, your higher self, she just takes you there, but you got to shed a couple things along the way in order to get there. And when you trust that this shedding is part of the process, and even though you can't see it right away, when you step into the manifestation of this transformation and you look back, you're gonna see it all. It's the hindsight thing. You'll connect all the dots and be like, gosh, now I understand why I had to get rid of that job. Now I understand why I had to, get rid of some of my things, or why I had to move to a new place. I understand now. I couldn't explain it to everybody why I needed to move somewhere, but I just did, and then it all fell into place. It's how it works. It's how it works. It's how it's meant to work for us. Thank you for being here with this. Spend time with these questions. Spend time with your true false statements so that you're understanding how to communicate, how to participate with your intuition, and allow yourself to grow and create, resolutions to the tension that is created with the intention. And with every step, you resolve some of that tension, and you get even closer to creating the manifestation of this transformation. I will see you on the next module, which is where we will put all of this together into a beautiful hypnomeditation that's going to take all parts of what we've done here in these first 6 stages, and we are going to program them into you. And that way you have embodied the process of transformation in every cell of your physical body. Every part of your physical or energetic field is going to understand this, and your spiritual self, we're going to integrate it all into one, and we're going to take this area of your life and process it through and bring it through a transformational hypnomeditation so that you can embody the outcome, and it just becomes a part of who you are. And we're going to raise your frequency up to those resonant frequencies of the transformation. So we are going to move you into a completely different resonant space from where you are right now. It's kind of exciting. What you want to do is have all of your experiential exercises with you when we do this process. So if you have to refer to them, you can open your eyes and refer to the parts of the hypnomeditation that we're referring to in the experiential exercises you've done so far. Okay, so hopefully you've done all your work. You're going to want to have an idea of every part of the experiential pieces of the first 6 stages so that you can bring those into the hypnomeditation, okay? Thank you so much for being here, sweet soul. Enjoy yourself, and I'll see you on the last and final stage of the 7 stages of alchemic transformation. Mwah! See you later.